What happened today has made it crystal clear that President Trump is acting against the advice of top Pentagon and national security officials because he thinks he knows better.
Washington is on edge following yesterday's news that Defense Secretary James Mattis will be leaving the Trump administration at the end of February. The announcement came right in the middle of negotiations to avert a partial government shutdown, and one day after President Trump said that he would pull U.S. troops out of Syria. Mattis is just the latest general to plan his exit from the Trump administration.
Joining me now is the former Secretary of Defense under President Obama, Chuck Hagel. He also served as a Republican senator from Nebraska and as a combat veteran from the war in Vietnam. Secretary Hagel, good to see you as always. Mattis made it quite clear in his letter he believes in allies and alliances. He believes China and Russia are threats. He formed his beliefs through 4 decades of immersion in foreign policy, and that Donald Trump doesn't view the world in the same way. What was
I am shaken by the resignation of General Mattis for what it means to our country, for the message it sends to our troops, and for the indication of what his view is of the commander-in-chief.
The combination of the abrupt resignation of Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis and the president's temper tantrum over the wall has lent Washington a distinct air of panic and worry these last 2 days.
This was day 700 of the Trump administration, and here is what we are dealing with and covering tonight. Put it this way, the usual order in our government is not in place tonight. The diligence that dictates the behavior of the White House in normal times is not in place. Here is a loose tally of where we are. The President of the United States under criminal investigation, his children facing possible legal jeopardy, is threatening to shut down the federal government tomorrow at midnight over funding for his border wall, which he described today as being more like steel slab.
When will they decide he's got to go? That will be the interesting moment, I think.
That group has done well for a long time.
They've done even better now, historically better.
Yeah.
All the Republicans in that photo that you showed, standing there on the steps with him a year ago today, all looking so slap happy and all. Remember, it's not just Trump. All of the Republicans, all of them, nobody has had the courage to stand up and say this is wrong. This is un-American. This hurts this country. This tax cut, in a sense, an act of terror, because it's going to make the people who are already struggling to get by that much harder to get by. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And to alleviate their pain, how many more of those opioid drugs are they going to need? What will happen with their children in their inadequate schools? You know, the air that they're breathing, the climate change that they say they don't believe in.
And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. You know, I come to Washington for 2 days. And look what happens. I feel like I have to get out of here before the earth cracks open and swallows this place whole. Was it me? Today has just been a cascade of what would be generally seen as absolutely apocalyptic news in any other presidency. In the Trump presidency, maybe we just think of this as a slightly rockier than usual Thursday, but any one of the things that happened today would be written into the history of any other modern presidency as one of its worst days or the start of the end.
Tom Nichols, I want to explain to everybody before I quote you here that you speak neither for the DOD, for James Mattis, or for surviving members of Led Zeppelin. When I read this quote, you said yesterday, the government of the United States is now in almost total free fall. The situation in 1974 was orderly and professional compared to this complete circus. Explain.
In 1974, you had a presidency that was failing, melting down. The president himself, President Nixon, was under immense stress. But you had him surrounded by people that were highly competent people. You had Henry Kissinger. You had people like James Schlesinger. You had, Donald Rumsfeld, Scowcroft, people that you may not like, but that were really good at what they did and who were all the adults in the room to overuse, as John said earlier, overuse that phrase. Now, this is complete freefall. I mean, when you have a major troop announcement like the president issued with Syria, and you have the White House and the DOD referring back to each other to try to answer questions because nobody knows what the hell anyone is doing. That's just a complete meltdown of the chief of staff's position, the White House messaging shop, the foreign policy shop, the NSC. That's a White House where nobody knows what's going on.